Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Homeless Left. I'm your host, Matt Weinglass, and we have a great show for you planned today. Our co-host, Niko Kiriako, he is on location in Cleveland today. I had a chance to catch up with him earlier, and we're going to play that conversation for you guys and do a little RFK Jr. update and amongst some other stuff we're going to talk about. But today, the show's topic is dissenting voices in media. And we've seen these voices change over the last 20 years. And we have thoughtfully gone through some of these most inspiring people, as if we could flash back to the early 2000s, work our way up to right now. We've seen how this conversation has changed in the media and who is representing the people, who's punching up, who's doing real journalism and who's not, who's doing propaganda for the military industrial complex, for big pharma, for these establishments that they're supposed to be challenging. So every generation has those courageous voices. We can go way back to Walter Cronkite if we want to, Barbara Walters' early years. There's a lot of moments in time where we've had journalists challenge these institutions. Now, in our lifetimes, more in the last 20 years, there's been less and less. So we're going to get into a lot of that today, but I want to let people know, if you're just joining us for the first time, The Homeless Left, we started this podcast because we felt like our voice on the left was being misrepresented by the Democratic Party or this club that we're supposed to be in and we're supposed to check boxes for. And if we don't check the right boxes, well, that means that we're no longer in the club. So it kind of leaves us stranded, and it feels like we're alone. It feels like we're, as we call it, homeless. And so we started this to really have this conversation with others that feel like us, but also reach out to people on the right that feel the same way. This left and right thing has been very simplified over the years. We look at things on a linear way when we talk about politics, like, are you on the left? Are you on the right? Are you in the middle? And, understanding the populist voice on both sides and seeing both sides doesn't even really necessarily put you in the middle. The middle, that centrism, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a ground movement where we go outside of the bubble of the establishment and we connect the dots around the outside. So if anything, we're leaning down and we're punching up. That's what we're doing here. And we hope to keep the conversation going with you guys as we move forward. We're 5 weeks into the show. It's going great so far. We have 5 more weeks we're going to do. And then we're going to see what happens after that. But we have a lot of great content for you guys. Please like and subscribe, all the stuff. You guys know it. You can even comment if you're watching live. If you're watching on replay, that's fine too. You can share this link and let people know what we're doing, because we don't know what's going to happen, tomorrow. We don't know what's happening, a month or 2 months from now. We're going to take it one day at a time, one story at a time, and we'll be thoughtful with every single conversation that we have. We have to put in that type of thought and patience and and energy and commitment. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of heart and emotion, and it definitely can be exhausting, but we hope you guys appreciate what we are doing. And yeah, let's get into it. And one more thing about Homeless Left. This is a place where political castaways can gather around core principles and common sense. That's the tagline we've been working on. So hopefully, yeah, I think that might resonate and stick, or we'll keep adjusting it. But we always have to be in a state of adjustment. That's how we feel here. We're never grounded in one place. We always have to be looking to evolve. So with that said, the first voice we're going to speak about is one that is near and dear to me, because as a filmmaker, I came up in this world of, storytelling, where there's ways to storytell. There's scripted material, there's feature films you can make that are, scripted, and, acting and directing and all that stuff. Then there's the documentary side of things. And one of the biggest voices of telling real stories that weren't scripted, that were about getting those stories on camera and putting it on the screen, was Michael Moore. Michael Moore, he came up, his first film I think back in 1989, Roger and Me, put him on the map. But he really blew up with his Bowling for Columbine film in 2003. And I believe at the time, and I remember this, you guys might remember this too, the Academy Awards and the whole Hollywood circle at the time they embraced him like no other. They ate this guy up because he was speaking for the people. And at the time, it seemed that Hollywood was about these type of stories. So Bowling for Columbine got a lot of buzz, a lot of praise. And when it came time for the Oscars, everybody knew that Bowling for Columbine was going to win. It was basically, there was no chance of anyone else. With that said, Michael Moore, what he did at the time was he reached out to the other filmmakers, the other documentary filmmakers that were nominated. There were like 4 others at the time. And he prepared to engage with them in advance, knowing that he was going to go up on stage and accept this award. He wanted the rest of them to come up with him, and he wanted to make a statement. And the statement was against the Iraq war, that we had just invaded Iraq. It was March of 2003. The awards might have been right before that, so we were just on the brink of it. Bush was sending us into Iraq, and little did we know it was going to be a 20-year thing going into Iraq, Afghanistan, the whole 9 yards. And he said, this is the moment where I can speak up and say something about this. Let's watch what happens when Michael Moore speaks out as an anti-war voice in 2003 to a crowd that has embraced him, giving him Best Documentary of the Year. Let's see how the crowd reacts. They turned on him. They started to play out music. He knew it was going to happen. It was very impactful, actually. That music at the end actually really helped the message. Now, he was ahead of it, obviously. Like Hollywood catches up later, and then the rest of the world catches up, and now all these years later, oh, yeah, Iraq was, we shouldn't have done it. Oopsies. But he was in front of it, and that's what you have to be as a voice. Now, he's not technically a journalist, but as a documentary filmmaker, he has a voice. He can go out there. He can question things. He can challenge narratives, and be brave doing it. And that's what he did. And this is why it's so infuriating to see what happened to him. Fast forward 20 years later, and we have, Trump comes into the picture. Well, this is 2015, 2016. Trump comes into the picture, and the world goes crazy on this. This is just us now responding to the media, not challenging them. And Michael Moore, although he's been consistently principled with anti-war, I know he's conflicted about it, because you can't really be anti-war if you're supporting Joe Biden. You can't. You can talk about, oh, he got us out of Afghanistan. And Michael Moore definitely, in 2021, he went on all the MSNBC shows and everything. And he went on there and he was like, you see, Biden is good. He's getting us out of Afghanistan. But he little did he know, he had no idea that was just the maneuver of the military industrial complex to then align everything around Ukraine and then start throwing money into that. And as we know, as of today, we're at well past 140 billion that we've thrown to Ukraine. A war that Michael Moore should be shouting out against right now. And I don't think he's doing it. What he is doing, though, is he's going on these fake independent networks like TYT, and he's doing his anti-war messaging a little bit. But he really goes on there to let them know that he's aligned with the Democratic Party, no matter what. He is a vote blue no matter who. That means you do not question anything. You just say, hey, this is better than Trump. And then you start making up stories about Biden wanting to do the right thing, but he can't because he's got those darn Republicans, and Bernie's sitting with him and they're having dinner every day. And it's so nice. And it's just a feeling, but these are just feelings. This isn't actual investigative journalism he's doing anymore. He's not challenging this. He's not standing up against Joe Biden. So let's see where Michael Moore is. Let's fast forward to 2021. Where he is now on TYT, a fake news organization pretending to be independent, but just taking billionaire money like all the rest. Here's what Michael Moore has to say about Bernie and Biden, as he calls it, working together. It's a nice feeling. Let's see what he has to say about how that feels to Michael Moore.
I mean, I've known Bernie since he first ran up in Burlington back in the 1990. When he said that Biden was a friend of his, he didn't mean it like a political friend. I mean, I think he meant that Biden was a friend, and they respected each other, and they spoke to each other. And what I've witnessed in these first 7 months is not a lean to the center or to the right, but to the left, to Bernie. I just started making this joke to people. I don't know this for a fact, but I get the sense that Biden and Bernie are like having a late night, before going to bed chat with each other, because a lot of what Biden is doing is essentially Bernie's belief system, Bernie's values, Bernie's, and Biden's careful not to call any of these things what Bernie would call them, like Medicare for all. Yet, but the truth of what he's done is much of what Bernie has been pushing for decades.
Oh my God. I mean, it's these are feelings. These aren't real. This isn't a real investigation. This is just feelings, because we want to believe that. We want to believe it so bad. But the fact is, Bernie and Biden, they're not speaking late at night. They're not speaking at all. Bernie's not getting anything done through Biden. Biden has gone 100% right wing. He's always gone right wing. There's no reason for him not to. If anything, when you have a figure like Trump in the picture, which we've had for the last 7-8 years, you have that as an excuse to not do anything left. That's the point. You have this boogeyman set up in the corner for you to reference anytime somebody gets upset and goes, "Where's our health care for all? Where's our living wage? Where's our student loan debt relief? Where's our anti-war? When are we going to start being about peace? When are we going to, relieve sanctions in all these Latin American countries and all over the world? Like a third of the planet, we put sanctions on. We cause war all over the world. And the left's been about that. But no, now's not the time. Now's not the time. We have to stop Trump. And that was for 4 years while he was president. Now he's not even president, and we still have to stop him. Is that everything we do is stopping him? And then people like Michael Moore can go on, these fake news shows, and he loves his access to MSNBC. But believe me, he loves going on MSNBC as well. And he just goes on there and he just talks about, oh, the Democrats are trying so hard. And that's not the voice of a courageous filmmaker, of a documentarian who got on that stage back in 2003 and challenged the narrative. He got boos. If you're not getting boos from your own party or your own people, you're doing something wrong. Because look how long it takes for everyone to catch up. Mark my words, years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to go, oh, if only we knew about the Ukraine garbage neo-Nazi problem. If only we knew about this bullshit proxy war that we set up in 2014, which Oliver Stone made a documentary about it back in 2014. And it was pulled from Netflix. And if only we had that information. Well, now in hindsight, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have thrown 140 billion. Yeah, we're supposed to be about people, and maybe sending money over there wasn't actually helping people, was actually harming people and causing more bloodshed and causing more death and more pain and funneling more money into the pockets of warmongers, as we do every single time. Sorry, Michael Moore. You're just not you're not a leader anymore. And I hope you can figure it out. I really do, because you were a hero to me growing up, and I just don't see it anymore. I mean, Fahrenheit 11.9, are you kidding me? Come on. Go deeper. Go further. Go harder, man. You got to go harder for us, please. Okay. On that note, I think it's time that we check in with Niko, who is actually out in Cleveland. We got some great updates for you guys from Niko, because he's covering another story. He's going to talk about that. We're going to get into some of the reactions from last week's show, because I know we had a big audience watching us last week, and we were going to talk a little about that, and some really cool RFK Jr. updates. So let's see what's going on with Niko. Niko, I'm glad we were able to coordinate our schedules and get you on here for a little bit. I know you're real busy out there in Cleveland. What do they got you doing? What are you up to up there? What are you covering?
Yeah, I'm visiting some urban communities that have been impacted by the lockdowns and the economic hardships in the country. particularly the African American community here. They've had sort of a reduction of job opportunities. 41% of Black businesses closed during the lockdowns and the pandemic, and there's a lot of them have not reopened. So the prospects for people here are not great, and so they're kind of a story that I'm looking at this week. Yeah, so hey, last week's show, I was only on for part of it, but I got caught up on Mindy Robinson, and I thought you handled that pretty well. It was a tough guest in some regards, very outspoken, very passionate. But as part of what we want to do here is foster a discussion, foster a debate, let people speak their minds. We don't have to agree with them. That's kind of the model of America we're trying to get back to.
I appreciate you saying that, Niko. It was a lot of pressure, and I did realize we had a brand new audience last week. Mindy's audience that hasn't heard really anything that we're talking about over here on the Homeless Left. So I did appreciate them tuning in, and I just hope that at least we started a new conversation with them, just like planted a seed. But yeah, it was it was a tough one. But thanks for the feedback and the support, and everyone else as well out there that's given us great support over that, and we want to keep the conversation going for sure. Hey, Niko, also I will say this, it's too bad you can't be here with us today, because we're getting into a lot of stuff about these outspoken voices that we've seen change over the course of the last 20 years. And the audience has seen the Michael Moore transition that happened, where he was our guy in the early 2000s. Now not so much. I mean, it's kind of sad, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was a guy who was Fahrenheit 9/11. He was basically, in the first page of his book, he's pointing the finger at how the Saudi royal family is airlifted out of the country within a week of 9/11, when we already had intelligence information showing that they were linked to terrorism and potentially this event. So he was practically pointing the finger at the White House for collusion in 9/11. I mean, and here he is, a couple decades later, completely a spokesperson for the ruling class and their take on how to run the planet, and to the point where he's like actually, endorsing candidates based on hearsay, based on his imagination.
It's crazy to watch, and you see his face, like he's got this like little boy face of like Santa Claus is coming. No, he really is. I feel it. I believe it. And it's just, my God, it's like, is that where we're at now? We're just these little children just hoping that mommy and daddy, give us a toy, and we're just going to ignore all the other bullshit. Is that where we're at? That's how far we've come, I guess.
Yeah, you have to wonder what happened to some of these guys. Did he change his political views? Did he change his value system? Was he always an ideologue of some kind who was just against the war and for workers' rights and for clean water? And I'm not saying he's no longer for clean water, workers' rights, but when you endorse the establishment, it's almost like something you've talked about, this anything but Trump syndrome, this kind of attitude that, hey, if it's not, if Trump endorsed it or Trump said it, then we have to oppose him, and the means justify the ends, even if it means we have to get behind and based on hypothetical imaginations back up the candidate Biden and his running mate, just because it's the best alternative that the establishment has put forth to Trump, rather than say, hey, I disagree with these people, they're too centrist, they don't represent my core values. Yeah, maybe I'm going to vote for them, but sort of begrudgingly, because there's no real other good option. That would have been the kind of honesty I would expect out of someone like Michael Moore.
Yeah, and what you're referring to, Niko, it's called Trump derangement syndrome, and there's a lot of people that have coined that word, and it's stuck because it really sums the whole thing up. And Michael Moore is certainly a victim of that, and we hope that he can get better soon, I guess. That's all I can say. Yeah. So, hey, are you ready to do a campaign news update?
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right, hey, I'm going to give you a little updates on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign. He's been a busy week. Starting out last week in weekend, he was in New Hampshire. He visited the state Senate House there and spoke to legislators, and then he also gave a peace and diplomacy speech that we had mentioned on the 60th anniversary of JFK's peace speech. And it was a really packed house. There were about 1,300 people crowded into a 1,000-seat auditorium at St. Anselm's College. And he kind of waxed very poetic. It was a little departure from what you see on the podcast. He laid down some more concrete policies, and he called out the State Department and the Biden administration to start scaling down the war machine, to de-escalate our hostility and hostile relations with foreign powers, and sort of push us away from war. And I want to show you a little clip of that speech where he touches on some key points.
Let's take up that call from 60 years ago and ask Americans, all of us, to re-examine our attitude. We have been immersed in a foreign policy discourse that is all about adversaries and threats and allies and enemies and domination. We've become addicted to comic book good versus evil narratives that erase complexity and blind us to the legitimate motives and the legitimate cultural and economic concerns and the legitimate security concerns of other peoples and other nations. We have internalized and institutionalized a reflex of violence as the response for any and all crises. Everything becomes a war. War on drugs, the war on terror, war on cancer, war on climate change. This way of thinking predisposes us to wage endless wars abroad, wars and coups and bombs and drones and regime change operations and support for paramilitaries and juntas and dictators. None of this has made us safer, and none of it has burnished our leadership or our moral authority. But more importantly, we must ask ourselves, is this really who we are? Is this what we want to be? Is that what Americans' founders envisioned? Is it any wonder that as America has waged violence throughout the world, violence has overtaken us in our own nation? It has not come as an invasion. It has come from within. Our bombs, our drones, our armies are incapable of stopping the gun violence on our streets and schools, or domestic violence in our homes. Waging endless wars abroad, we have neglected the foundation of our own well-being. We have a decaying economic infrastructure. We have a demoralized people and despairing people. We have toxins in our air and our soil and our water. We have deteriorating mental and physical health. These are the wages of war. What will be the wages of peace?
Yeah, so I think that speech really hit an emotional note, and I should say just first off that this is not we're not affiliated here on this podcast with the campaign. We're not speaking for the campaign. We are using a campaign video here just to showcase. These are all going out on his social media accounts. A little bit of what he talked about, and I mean, you can literally see him, Matt, like tearing up at the end. It's like this guy is not just a politician doing rhetoric and trying to drum up, the anti-war sentiments of some old liberal vanguard. I mean, he's trying to revive the moral compass of America and saying this isn't just it goes all the way back to the founding fathers. I mean, Lincoln saying, we're a good nation. We're, a great nation because we're a good nation. We're not here to go on imperialistic ambitions. And I don't know, what's your reaction?
It's as heartfelt as you can get as a politician. I mean, I think he's redefining what it means to be a politician right now, today. And he's certainly making it done. He's making an impact. A speech like that, it does. It gives you chills. Obviously the music and the editing and the cutaways help tremendously. But like you said, look in his eyes. I mean, this is a guy he wasn't born into this, he didn't have this you know, that impulse that a lot of these leaders, they just want to be in charge, and they want to control things. It seems to me he was kind of forced into this position because no one else is willing to do it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's hard to know. I mean, he has the legacy, to live up to. Maybe he has, sort of his destiny of public service is the Kennedy mantra, and that sometimes does lead you to pursue the highest offices. I can't really speak to his personal ambitions. I know he didn't need this, and I mean, like, look, I'll be open. Like, this guy's won my vote, but I mean, I'm not here to tell anyone who to vote for, to tell him, to just try to propagandize him. I mean, let's talk about it fairly and honestly. But I can't, even if he has, designs on, getting to be the president for some personal reasons, if there is a selfish motive, who can read that? But if you were doing that, wouldn't you be selling out to the biggest lobbyists? I mean, this guy, he hasn't even raised $4 million, and he's already at the first quarter of reporting your earnings for a campaign. And so, it's like he's already alienated all the biggest donors, whether it's tech or it's, military contractors or it's pharmaceutical industry. I mean, the guy's going to really pulling a Bernie in the sense that he's going to have to rely on a grassroots campaign of people making small donations. And, if anyone is planning to support this guy, now's the time, because, if you report very low filings early on, it's not good for your campaign. But I mean, frankly, like, the amount of traction he's gotten used to cost $100 million to get to 20 points in the polls. So why is he getting so far? It's because of podcasts. It's because of the alternative media, but it's also because I think the message of truth has legs. It's like, if you go around telling people, hey, this is the way things are, as you mentioned, the emperor has no clothes, and you challenge the system, it resonates with people, and it gets exposure, and they share it, and it goes viral. You don't get that when you're just saying, vague idealistic messages that, are designed to pluck a few heartstrings, but are really based on not offending any big, corporate donors, right, or, PAC funding.
And I'll add in this, because from an outside perspective looking in, and I'll say that because I made a commitment never to vote for either of the two parties ever again. And then Kennedy came along. And so what I'm saying is, look, our vote has value, and it has value when we don't commit too early. So I won't officially say I'm voting for him yet. However, what we can notice, and anybody watching this and who hasn't made up their mind, or they don't know what to think right now, it's okay not to know what to do right now. We're 17 months away from the election. And what I'm noticing is all these unions. And as a union guy, like, we're making this union film, Confessions of a Union Buster. We're engaged with union organizing right now. We've noticed what the Democratic Party has done as a whole, just in these last 2 years, how they've crushed union organizing. They've crushed the worker. They're an anti-labor party. And just when Kennedy he's building steam, you can just notice, pay attention. You can see these labor groups, these union groups all over the country are immediately signing on to Biden right now. And the reason they're doing it is they're feeling the pressure, because the Democratic Party is scared right now of Kennedy. And we can see it. Because why would these unions, who are being crushed right now, 17 months away from the election, immediately throw it in for? They're saying we're for Biden Harris. How is that happening? These unions are supposed to take their time and look and assess. They've gone green before. They've gone to different places. You don't do that 17 months. So there's a reason that's happening. They're scared. The Democratic Party is getting nervous, and they're getting aggressive. And so that means something's working. Something's happening with Kennedy right now.
Yeah, well, I think that people hedge their bets with the incumbent and everything, and the unions. But I think, again, like, going back to, here's a guy who's trying to speak also to the African-American community, like here in Cleveland, and talk about things like police brutality, but he's not going to turn around and say defund the police. He's going to work with the police union and say, let's get the police on board. We need law enforcement, but we want to correct the errors where it's like just a small minority of officers that are committing these violations and terrorizing the public. I mean, that's the people we want to address.
Well, I do think it's a larger systemic issue of the nature of policing. The police culture does need to be looked at, and I do agree with you. I know you said that defund the police is a horrible slogan.
All right,
and
there's a cop going by right here.
That's funny, right? No,
Fire truck.
See, they're paying attention. They're like, we got to shut these guys out. No, the defund the police. You're absolutely right. That was a horrible campaign, or that was a horrible slogan for the DNC. But mark my words, man. There's nobody on anywhere that's blue that is pushing defund the police. I think the idea was always, and I hope Kennedy's aligned with this. Do you know how he feels about? You're saying he thinks it's just like a bad apple situation, because I think the bigger problem of police culture is the culture itself. It does need to be looked at how the training goes.
No, you have to do sensitivity training and have. I mean, they're members of the community. They have to be networked and connected to the community. They can't be in opposition and terrorizing the communities they work in, and they should come from those communities. I mean, there's a whole slew of reforms, but in terms of just immediately stopping police brutality, the most rapid and effective means would really be to cut out the bad apples through a close monitoring system of these bad officers. But I mean, I think that's a deeper issue you can go into. But I think other than that, I just wanted to cut into a couple other Kennedy updates. But you know, he also was on Bill Maher this week. His Cafe Random After Hours shows where Maher smokes a fat joint and pounds back a handle of tequila. And of course, Kennedy's there sipping his tea, sober for 40 years. But it was an interesting interview because Maher really bumps him off his like rhetoric, his just standard answers, and gets him to have different reactions. I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but one thing he does is just tear apart the most recent New York Times coverage of Mr. Kennedy, which just goes into like, you know, here's a disinformation conspiracy theorist. You know, in the first couple lines, it's like, your job as the media is to tell me the facts so I can decide what to think about them, not to tell me what to think about the facts. And I mean, that's what, you know, the business of these comedian hosts and Michael Moore, you know, heavy-handed documentarians. Sure, they're gonna frame things in a way to tell you what to feel, tell you what to think. Mm-hmm. But you'd expect of the New York Times, a paper of record, you know, to take a little more unbiased approach.
Absolutely. I love that Bill Maher sets that forum up, and then he allows Kennedy to come on and talk. And I have to check out that whole thing, but I've seen clips of it. It's pretty awesome. It's a breath of fresh air to have a conversation like that with a person currently running for president, to be able to sit down and have that real discussion. We need more of that. So that's pretty badass. Yeah.
But of course, the biggest news this week, though, in the Kennedy world was his push-up post, which was shot, you know, in LA at an outdoor gym area, and he's there just doing push-ups, and he only does 10 in the clip, and then it's like people are like, "What? You can only do 10?" Of course, when he stands up, he's like ripped, like fucking man, and people were like, "Holy shit!" They thought his head was pasted on to like some ripped guy, but it's like it's actually him. I mean, he's really into fitness, and this had, I think, got up to 12 million likes or 12 million interactions. Sorry.
It's all good.
Cleveland, you know, a lot going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, 12 million interactions on Twitter, and it's like, I think that may be one of his highest ever. And it just goes to show, like, you know, I know he's got a lot to say about healing the divide in America, and I think sometimes healing the divide just means focusing on issues that unify us, like health, like fitness, like our personal well-being. You know, I just think that post, the success of that post says a lot about where America's at. I mean, Kennedy's campaign message is heal the divide, but it's nice healing the divide isn't talking about necessarily all the horrible things that have happened in our world, but actually talking about the good things that, you know, that we have, our fitness, our health, our well-being. I mean, that's what people are interested in. They're tired of all the vitriol and the negativity, and just to have a candidate that's fit and healthy, and all the memes like, you know, him next to Batman, that the two have never been seen in the same room, or him next to Peter Hotez, you know,
oh my God,
health expert and conspiracy theorist, and here's him all ripped and shredded, and the health expert is all flabby and pale and evil looking. So it's like, you know, I mean, take your pick. You know, who do you want to run our society? Yeah.
Exactly. I love that that's blowing up. People are paying attention. Hey, Niko, thanks for taking time to check in with us out from Cleveland. I'm really looking forward to having you back in the studio. or your home studio with us next week, so we can get into more of the nitty gritty, when we get back to things. So appreciate it.
Same, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll see you next time. That was Niko checking in with us from Cleveland. We are excited to have him back next week, and we'll be back into the dual studio where we can have more of a discussion on some stuff. Actually, next week, it's a pretty cool show because it actually will be 4th of July, and we are doing the 4th of July show. We have a very thoughtful show planned. I guess it's an Independence Day special, but we'll be getting into some topics that maybe most people don't really think about when we think about Independence Day and celebrating. What are we actually celebrating? So we'll, and we have a special guest lined up for that as well. We'll be announcing them soon. I want to remind you guys, if you are watching on our other platforms, when I say other, I mean the safe ones like YouTube. Twitter is, up and down. Twitch, not so sure yet. We're still trying to figure that one out. But those are our safe platforms. Guys, know that we are on Rumble right now. Rumble seems to be the place where we can actually have a full conversation without getting a strike or getting, censored or getting, whatever, like lost in an algorithm. It seems that Rumble is the place to be. So if you want to have a deeper conversation with us, we will be ending the stream here on the other channels very soon. And then you guys can join us over on Rumble. I should put this up because you guys, if you want more about the Kennedy stuff, you can go to Kennedy24.com, and we'll be checking in on that every week for at least for the next 4 or 5 weeks on the update on the campaign with Niko, and getting to some other stuff as well. Guys, this has been a fun 5 weeks so far. We're going to do another month or so and see what happens from there, but we do appreciate the engagement with you guys. And we want to get more into this topic today. We have a lot to cover. I'm thinking we might want to end this stream soon here on those safe channels. But I wanted to let you guys know that the point is we're going to dive into the big one I want to cover is going to be Jon Stewart. He was another person that came up with us while we were working in the campaign field at the time during the early 2000s. And we were, if you guys remember that time, it was very interesting. It was a time where we were, the left was challenging the war machine on the right. And you had the Bush and Cheney regime, I guess we called it. And it was because they were just a war machine. They were going, the plan to kind of invade these countries in the Middle East. And we saw it happening, and the people on the left were pushing back. Jon Stewart was a big voice for that. So we're going to get into that over on Rumble. But guys, just look how things have changed. I mean, we have people who used to be voices against the establishment, and they're no longer like that. People like Amy Goodman over on Democracy Now! They do pro-war stuff now. They used to challenge the war machine. Now they do pro-war stuff. You got people like Keith Olbermann. I mean, he used to do Countdown on MSNBC, Countdown with Keith Olbermann. And we talk about how many X amount of days that, we're still in Iraq since Bush announced mission accomplished. He had a countdown for that. There was a challenge there. He doesn't do that anymore. Stephen Colbert, he had a great moment back in 2005. This guy goes into the Lion's Den at the presidential, it was the yearly banquet where they invite a comedian to do that kind of the keynote speech, and they're supposed to tell jokes, but he just ripped into the war machine back then. You don't see him doing that now on CBS. It's really a shame. But fast forward to now, who are the people challenging the narrative? Who are standing up? Who's getting the pushback against them? People like Russell Brand, people like Joe Rogan. We have news outlets like the Gray Zone with Max Blumenthal. We've had him on the show before. Aaron Mate came from Democracy Now! And Democracy Now!, where he says, Amy Goodman changed. She used to be, this pro, peace activist with her reporting, and then she became pro-war. And he left, and he went to the Gray Zone, where they actually challenge the military-industrial complex on a regular basis, and they stand up against that. Not just stand up against them, stand up against the smearing and the belittling and the name calling and the punishments and the censorship And that takes courage to do that. So those are the people we want to look at today and really say, like, who's paying the paycheck? Where are people getting their money from? Really look at where your news is coming from, guys. It's really important. See where are you getting your information from? Whether it's about war, Iraq, or or currently with Ukraine, or big pharma stuff, like what's the latest vaccine and all this stuff. Like look at where you're getting your news from, and let's be allowed to have those conversations, and let's be allowed to challenge stuff without being attacked personally. I think that's the key. So right now, I'll go ahead and let the people in the Sherwood player community know that you guys can always reach out to us. You can always go to our website, sherwoodplayers.com, get part of the community, be part of what we're doing here in LA, because we are a group of courageous artists, filmmakers, storytellers, actors, writers, producers, directors. And we want to be brave as we continue to move forward in this crazy time we're in, and not be divisive, but be inclusive and allow people to have their voice and have their stories told. And that's what we do here at Sherwood Players on a number of levels. We have feature films in always in different stages of development, and classes and workshops and live events and all the good stuff here. If you're in the LA area, go to Sherwood Players. You can also follow us on the social media at Sherwood Players across the board. So check that out. We have a film festival that just opened up. It's our third annual Sherwood Players International Film Festival for short filmmakers all over the world. We get submissions from globally, so like everywhere. So if you guys have films that are 20 minutes or less, get them together. Go to spiff.live and submit, because we have our awesome festival goes on in December in Hollywood. We'll be screening the top films, doing an awards party. It's really fun. We always get great feedback from people, and they get on planes and they travel out here, and we always want to give people a good time. So that's what we have coming up later in the year. But yeah, get your films in now. And then I'll just say this, guys, thanks for tuning in and being part of this. We're going to continue the conversation. Right now, we're going to transfer over to just our exclusively on Rumble. If you're there now, just hang tight. If you want to get over, we're going to give you the information in the transition music right now, and we will see you guys over Rumble in a little bit. Okay, take care. We'll see you in a second.